I said, you know, it's funny. Like, Kevin Durant has done what very few people have done. Michael did it. Magic did it. I think LeBron did it. They separate. You're like, oh, they're way better than the second best player in the league. Like MJ and Barkley. It was like, that was a gap. And I thought LeBron and Kevin Durant 7 years ago, you're like, there's a gap. Magic and Bird felt like they'd kind of moved above the third best player. So KD to me has done that. There's a little separation between him and Harden and Giannis. And it's funny, I said to the staff this morning, you know what topic I've never done, and I've never thought about it until this morning, is Kevin Durant getting close to a top 10 player ever? Am I wrong on that?
I don't think you're wrong at all. There's a bunch of different ways you could look at it.
Okay.
I actually offered this up to Joy and you the other day during a break in between one of the two segments. I think he's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar of this generation. Stick with me, because Joy pointed out, and she's completely right, his mid-range jump shot, his pull-up jump shot, it's unblockable.
Unstoppable.
Right? It's basically you got to force him off his spot. It's a lot like Tom Brady, where you got to force him off his spot and hope he's out of rhythm and misses, because you can't stop it. You couldn't stop Kareem's skyhook. You hope he missed. You can't stop his pull-up jump shot because he's 7 feet tall. He shoots it so high. He elevates, he releases. He's such a good shooter, right? So there's that parallel. They both changed locations from their initial destination because they weren't comfortable there, right? Kareem won a championship in Milwaukee. KD obviously did not, but different. They both have this weird thing with the media. I think part of it is they're very, very intelligent.
Yeah.
And they're also kind of uncomfortable in their size and in their stature.
Yeah.
Right? Kareem has never been comfortable with how people look up to him and how they look at him, whether it's as an educated black man or whether it's as he's more than a basketball player. And I think KD is much the same way. He oftentimes is the smartest guy in the room, which is kind of hard to handle and answer questions the right way and not talk down to people while you're educating people.
I mean, Kareem is different. Kareem's just a unique personality, a unique guy.
But think about this. When we have discussions about the greatest players of all time, and I will grant you that Kareem, because we're in the post-center era,
right?
And I don't like getting into the Wilt stuff or into any of that era, the Jerry West. I'm going by my dad's word, right? It's a completely different sport,
right?
No one ever brings up Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the best player of all time. He's a 6-time NBA MVP and a 6-time champion.
Right.
And he's the all-time scoring leader in NBA history. He was so good in college that they wouldn't let you dunk because they were trying to take away his incredible advantage. And when you bring up LeBron, when you bring up this era, nobody ever points out, like, hey, KD faced off with LeBron in the finals the last 2 years. He was the better player. Forget about who had the better team. He's the better player. And then here's the other part. When you think of the Lakers and Showtime Lakers, whose team was it?
I always thought it was Magic.
Correct. When you think of the Golden State Warriors, whose team is it?
I think it's
Steph Curry's, right? Like, it almost feels like he's living, there's a parallel life there. Really kind of interesting.
So I was doing this morning, I said, and these are like my top 10 NBA players ever, and I didn't see Russell play. But I always go MJ, LeBron, Magic, Wilt, Kareem, Bird, Kobe, Russell, Shaq, probably Tim Duncan. I mean, that's kind of off the top of my head. Those are the 10 best players ever. I got news for you. Kevin Durant is doing what those guys did. He's separated from the league. If he hoists his third straight MVP final trophy, is he not as good as Tim Duncan?
I'll do you one better. I don't know how effective Tim Duncan is in this league
today.
Is he could he be Jokic in terms of his ability to pass? Maybe, but like, where is Tim Duncan is a center. Everybody's the greatest power forward of all time.
Right, he's a center.
He played center 85% of his NBA career. As an NBA center now, he doesn't defend ball screens that well. Yeah. He's not a great shot blocker.
No, you're right.
He was incredibly dominant in a different style of basketball.
So let's just do this. We'll all do this together.
Okay.
Let's take centers out. Okay, let's just take them out all time. Because, by the way, Goulet always jokes, whenever I do my top 10 players, I call it the genetic lottery. You're 7'3". I mean, it's just, so let's take all the centers out. Who are your top 10 players ever? So we would agree on the top three.
Magic, Bird, and LeBron.
Michael.
And Michael.
So those four in.
Yes.
I put Kobe in there.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, there's our 5.
Yeah. But Kobe hasn't been as dominant in this important of basketball as,
But would you agree that the 5 best non-centers that I've ever seen play?
Yeah.
And no order. MJ, Magic, LeBron, Bird, and Kobe.
Uh-huh. And I would easily put Kevin Durant in that conversation.
Okay, that's where I get to. This morning,
you and I are actually agreeing. We're just agreeing. What I think is interesting about Kevin Durant
does this sound crazy to you, Joy?
She has a podcast called
Maybe I'm crazy.
Maybe I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you get to about 6, and now I'm arguing.
It was really good synergy by me, by the way. I just don't want to gap myself.
Okay, so after you get out of the 5, after you get out of the Kobe and the Michael and the LeBron and the Magic, okay, we get out of those 5. At 6, I'm getting to Charles Barkley, Kevin Durant. I mean, I'm sorry.
I mean, Kevin Durant is not. Kevin Durant has so much more basketball left to play.
I know, and I'm already there. I'm already at 6 with him if you take centers out.
Well, look, the rap on him for a good portion of his career is, in the NBA playoffs, you could be super physical with him, and you could push him off his spot, and you could limit him.
Okay.
And if you've watched his game, one, he's added, he's much better off the dribble now, where when you put a P.J. Tucker on him, he takes him off the dribble to use his length and his quickness. Additionally, though, he's added some Dirk to his game. The 1-foot shots, those are Dirk Nowitzki, right? Where you can push him all you want, but as long as he gets his elbow where he wants underneath the basketball and he can see it, you can't stop it. So he's continuing, to Joy's point, not only does he have basketball to play, and he's only, 30 years old, but he's continuing to add to his game.
And I would argue every player, Magic was not a great jump shooter. Barkley.
But he got to where he could make it. But yes, he didn't even shoot a jump shot. He shot a push shot.
Barkley
didn't play any defense.
Nor did he practice. LeBron had no low post game for the first 9 years in his career.
Still kind of doesn't. She's that awkward fadeaway.
And he's a streaky 3 shooter.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan didn't have a ton of range as a shooter.
Then he evolved, and Jordan went from the best driver in the NBA and to
the best
mid-range, and then he became a 3-point shooter. Remember, against Portland, he had 6 threes in the first half, and then late in his career became the best post player in the NBA.
Everybody has that thing.
Yes.
And Kevin Durant's thing is no longer much of a weakness, which is you can push him around. Not really.
Yeah. Listen, I think what I was getting to is I think he actually translates into other eras, right? Because in an older era, he's a small forward that is unguardable, and he can play the ISO ball.
This is really
Whereas
good.
I don't think Tim Duncan translates to this era, and I'm not sure LeBron translates as well to the previous era because there's a power forward in the lane and a center in the lane, and he didn't have a pull-up jump shot for a long time.
Yeah, you're not saying LeBron wouldn't be great, but there is something to be said.
He would be a lot more like Magic Johnson, like a more athletic Magic Johnson, but Magic Johnson, there was nowhere to go in the lane. Whereas I think Jordan would be as good or better because, remember, when to stop Jordan, you used to have, it wasn't Bill Laimbeer was the power forward. He wasn't the center. They'd have 2 guys to knock him on his ass every time he drove to the basket. The NBA has changed. Now the lane is wide open. And so, you got to be able to shoot. And Jordan evolved into being a better shooter, but the lane would be opened up because you'd put shooters around him, much the way they have with Giannis. And he was the best penetrator we'd ever seen. I think Kobe also would be good in this era.
Wouldn't you also consider putting Steph in that category?
Yes. No, I put Steph in the top 10 players of all time. Take centers out. But I guess my whole point was we've never really had this top 10 Kevin Durant thing, and I'm sitting there thinking this morning, I'm like, after the big 4 or 5,
I actually said this stuff when you were off last summer.
I don't watch those shows.
And then I said he's the best player in the league.
On vacation,
Nick Wright starts throwing stats at me. I'm like, okay, I saw them play against each other. One guy was better in the second half.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.